Well, I forgot to record uh, dissolving the silver, which there's still a lot of silver in there, but the solution is saturated, and I'm going to pour it off into this quart jar so I can mix up some more and finish dissolving that. There is pieces of copper inside this jar, and what'll happen is, due to ionic exchange, the copper in solution here, and zinc and some other things that are in there, are much more soluble in solution than is the silver. So with the extra copper here, when I pour it in, the copper will take the place of the silver in solution and drop the silver out. And then the solution will eventually turn more of a blue. And then the silver will be left in the bottom of the quart jar. Now this would be better if we had beakers, but I don't have the beakers right now. So I'm going to pause this and take the lid off. I just sat there and talked for a good 7 minutes and forgot to hit the record button. Anyway, this is what happens when the copper goes in. There's no heat on this. It's room temperature. Actually, room temperature, slightly warmer than room temperature. The copper will go into solution and the silver will plate out. And you can shake it and the silver will come off. And then it'll continue to replate and build back up. Now I've got 2 discs of copper in there, and then a chunk of copper I took off a magnetron off of microwave, and that's what I'm using for the silver to collect on. Again, I shook it off a while ago. It's all gone. There goes some more. That's how fast it plates out in there. This is where I'm dissolving the silver with nitric acid and distilled water. And the gas, I believe, is nitric oxide, which is very poisonous. If you inhale it, it has a potential of going into your lungs and recreating nitric acid and dissolving your lungs from the inside out. So it's very, very, very deadly. So you got to be careful with it. Again, my shed, I don't have a door on it yet. So there's that. I hope to get a little over an ounce of purified silver out of this. Maybe a little bit less, but anyway, this silver should be, because it has copper in the solution, it should be somewhere between 98 and 99% pure once it's been rinsed off real well. Then you can use a silver cell or something to purify it even further. For my purposes, this is pretty much good enough. Now that will be cobalt blue when all the silver's plated out. Again, look, there's more silver on it already. Again, that is how fast it works. Sit there and watch it for a minute. Literally just sit there and watch it grow. And the bubbling is just the ionic exchange for the copper going into solution and the silver coming out. So, anyway, that's how I refine the silver. Tomorrow, if it's not too cold, the cold front's coming in, I'll probably, I've got another piece of sterling, almost 2 ounces, and I need to purify. The reason I do that is because I don't know if it is actually 100% sterling or if it's got solder and stuff in it. I don't mind it being sterling if it was pure, but it may have solder in it, in which case I need to get rid of that. I make my own jewelry and stuff out of it, so that's why I need it a little more pure. Again, we'll go back to this again. That's just neat. Good. It's a good practice for high school chemistry class, I believe. Now, where do I get some of my silver from? Jewelry that I run across, but also speakers, computer parts, you name it. Anything with a click or a contact in it will have silver to some degree. And these are my waste buckets. This has a little bit of silver on the bottom. I need to get a hose and heat it up to straighten it out. And then that's how it is. Fill up with water and then drain the liquid from one bucket to another so I can get the liquid off and get most of the silver out. Right now it's hard to process a 5-gallon bucket when there's maybe a 1/4 ounce of silver in it. So, and then when I do that, I can put steel in it, and steel, which is in that bucket, will drop the copper out into the bottom and put iron in it, basically make rusty water, but it drops the copper out. That's a copper bar I used to make pure copper crystals, and that's what's left of it. There's the pure copper crystals right there. But in any case, that's what was left out of it. Now, before I stopped, I used it to drop some silver the last time. I got almost an ounce of silver out of that batch. There's a little bit of brown gas in there because I had a little bit of extra nitric in there. But the solution was just so saturated, I wanted to go ahead and get it off and let it do its thing. So some of that silver will be super fine because it'll plate it out and then it'll redissolve it. And then it'll plate it out and redissolve it. You see it kind of building up on the bottom. And it'll keep doing that until all the copper is in solution and all the silver's out. Once the reaction's done, the reaction will stop, and I may put another piece of copper in there if all the copper's gone to see if it continues, which there'll still be copper in there, I know. So anyway, the reaction will be done, and then I can drain off the liquid and then collect my silver. And then I'll rinse it for 5 or 6 times, and that'll get the copper off of it. You can see right there. It's got a little bit of copper in it, but it's more dissolving the silver. And that big piece right there is a piece of sterling that I rolled out. Turn the heat up just a touch. See if I can see any bubbles. There's some bubbles in there. And what I've got is these mason jars. They don't do real well on direct heat. So I've got a cast iron pan that I use for roasting my gold and silver ores to burn the sulfides off. And I put some sand or dirt residue in the bottom of it. Sometimes it's just the old ore that's been leached off with acid. I put that in there, and it helps the heat to disperse evenly, and it doesn't overheat the mason jars. If they get too hot, they just explode. Whereas Pyrex could take a lot more of the heat. Anyway, this is more blue than this because this has a lot less copper in it. The copper is actually what's blue, and the other stuff will turn it green, or when it gets really, really saturated, it'll turn green. This has actually kind of got a blue tint to it, but this will go all night long, giving off bubbles and making silver. And then that's floating on the top will eventually sink to the bottom. Alright, I'll give y'all another update tomorrow. Okay, this is the next morning. I came out, I didn't think about it. Most of the silver here looks like it's dissolved. but I swirled it around to look at it before I started recording. Now this one I have not touched. This is where we're sedimenting the silver. Now here, most of the silver should have formed the sediment down at the bottom. So what I'm going to do here in just a minute is I'm going to pull this out and put it in a bucket where I put my leftover copper solution to sediment the copper out using steel parts. And then I'll recover the silver. And then I'll pour this into this to recover the silver out of that and evaluate what I have left in the bottom of the jar. Okay, I've started pouring some of this out. I can't get any more to settle right now. I'm sure there's still some in there, but it's not very much. So I'll let it sit overnight for a couple days with the copper in it. But now I'm trying to get it out of the filter. So to get more surface area through the filter, I get a funnel, and then I get a colander, and then I put a coffee filter in there and then pour it through there. That way I have all the coffee filter I can use instead of just down at the very bottom. I ran across that problem before. It just doesn't funnel out if all you've got is a dime size hole at the bottom. And I've run across a few more pieces while I'm scrapping out computers and stuff until I've got my pile down a little bit. Ran across aluminum motors, aluminum wires, and I thought some of this was zinc, but it wasn't. It was aluminum. Now that motor I've still got to tear apart. It's copper, and then I have all the computer parts over there I'm going to have to depopulate using that little oven. But first I want to get the silver done. So we'll come back at you in a little bit. Now this is the solution that has leftover silver in it. You see a piece of copper pipe in the bottom. What that does is it lets it set over time and drop the silver out, and you'll see all the silver down in the bottom. Now it's probably not a lot, it's just a thin coating, but it is all over the bottom. So I'm going to drain most of this off into that bucket, and then I'll start recovering the copper out of that by dropping pieces of steel in there with it. And then I'll start again my new bucket, pouring the silver in there. Alright, I just got through pouring most of the solution down in here, or half anyway, and I started stirring up the sediment. I don't want to pour the silver off, so I stopped. I'd rather leave a half full bucket than pour the silver off at this point. When I get my tube straightened up and warmed up, then I can use it as a pump to pump the water down into the other bucket using like a vacuum type system, like when you used to suck gas out of a gas tank with a water hose. Using the same basic philosophy. You'll fill the tube up with water, place it in there again, you'll cap one end off, put it down lower, and then gravity, as it pulls it out, will create a vacuum and pull the liquid out, and that'll leave more of the silver in the bottom. But for now, that's where I want to stop. Okay, I've poured it back in there, and that's how much cement silver I have in the bottom. And I have a little bit of copper left. I'm going to have to add some more. It's already eaten up most of the copper. And this is what I have in there. Now some of this in here is a little bit of gold or some other alloy that's not wanting to dissolve. So I am going to try one more time. Add the last of my distilled water. Distilled water's cheap. I'll go get some more today. And probably the last of my nitric acid, which no, not the last of it, but a good bit of it. I do believe I see gold foils in there floating around. That was unexpected. But put this back on the heat. Let it do its thing. I may or may not see any reaction from the nitric acid. And it just dawned on me where the gold foils are. There was a couple pieces of silver jewelry that had gold plating on them, so that gold that's floating around in there is probably the gold plating. So I'll need to try to recover that. I didn't think about that till just now. But it'll either be in there or in there, so I'll still get it. It's just a matter of when. Well, I'm almost finished. I've already dumped all the liquid off and poured some more water in there to rinse it a little bit. That's how much I've got. That should almost all be pure copper, but I'm going to let it sit overnight. I'm going to let this one finish draining. Let that one kind of soak a little bit. That one I've turned the power off. It's about absorbed all it's going to do. It's still got a little reaction going. I've removed all the junk out of it, the mylars from the keyboards, rinsed them off, stuff like that. That should have dissolved the silver really quick. Any pieces that are jewelry that were silver plated copper, that all I see is copper, I pulled them out, rinsed them off, I tossed them in my copper bucket. So it's about as far as it's going to go for now. So it's getting cold, it's getting late. I'm going to go in. I think I'm going to go ahead and post this video, see what y'all think. And the next video will be me cleaning up, drying, and weighing the cement silver. I'll probably go ahead and drop this too. I'll show y'all the drop on the next video. And then I'll start, if I've got enough chemicals, I'll start refining the gold that's in there as well. There's not much gold. There's probably only going to be 3 or 4 grams. That's a couple $100, but I've got a little bit more in the house, but I don't want to get to that just yet. It's a little bit higher quantity. I think by the time I'm done, I'll still have less than $1,000 in gold. But again, it's just such a small amount. You know, 10 carat here, 12 carat there, a little gold fill here. It adds up. It doesn't take much to add up. There's a piece of copper I kept missing that's in there. So if there's anything left, it'll still cement a little bit. I'm gonna have to pour that one off. I couldn't quite get that one. I had a big pair of hemostats I was trying to get it with, and I just couldn't grab that 1-inch copper disc. That actually is one of 2 of the original copper pieces that I poured ever in my life. The other one I caught and put back in here. I put all my copper in here just in case there's any left. And on the edges, you'll see where the cement silver is actually sticking to the filter. So, yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, I got up early this morning and couldn't sleep, so I went ahead and decided to get the silver weighed up. This is the dried silver powder that I got, and I have the scale zeroed out, and I'm going to spoon it over and weigh it out to determine what I have. Well, I dropped a little bit, but I'll scoop it back up. All right, 15.7. Stand by, I'll move this to another container. All right. Move that to another container. I re-zeroed the scale out. sitting right at half an ounce. Yeah, we're going to get a full ounce at least out of this. Maybe an ounce and a quarter. It's another 15 point something. Stand by. I just went ahead and weighed up the last of it. So I'll get back with you in just a second with the totals. And that is a medicine bottle that is 3/4 of the way filled up. And that is about an ounce and a half. I'll do the math. This is a bunch from another batch. And it's a little bit chunkier. I didn't powder it up as much, but that comes out to just about an ounce. So I have about 2.5 ounces of silver right there. Not bad from a bunch of scrap and some jewelry and computer parts. Okay, here's my math. The first batch was 15.74, the second weigh was 15.99, the third one was 14.01, which comes up to 45.74 grams. So on this recycle, I got 1.47 ounces. Now, I added the weight previous, which was 28.15, for a grand total of 73.88 grams, or 2.375 ounces. Well, it's almost $31 an ounce right now. So that's 60, well, let's just say a solid $70 in silver right there. In 2 medicine bottles. I think I rinsed the one on the left a little bit better, or let it sit longer. That's why they're a little bit different color. But that does happen. Anyway, that's how you refine silver.